Thank you for joining me today. I am Jerrel. I am a normal human being, and today I will be sharing with you the process of using free 3D sculpting software to create a 3D character model for use as a monster in a video game. I will show all of the steps in a very brief and quick manner. I will also explain to you some of the design philosophies that go into creating characters. So if you are interested in getting into game development, into 3D modeling and sculpting, or if you are a gamer like me and you just find this aspect of games interesting, then I hope you will enjoy this video. So I want to explain a few things while I'm doing the sculpt, but just want to let you know this model will be free to download for everyone. You don't have to sign up for a Patreon or anything like that, so it will be totally free. It will be set up for Unity. If you would like to use it in other engines, you should be able to set that up as well if you're comfortable with using whichever game engines you create. I will be offering this asset and future assets for free as well, so you don't need to sign up for Patreon or any other service. It's free for everyone to download, and you can use that in your games and projects. So you might be wondering, well, what's the catch? You should not trust people who are just giving things away for free. There is always a catch. Everyone always wants something from you. I'm offering these free. I'm not asking for anything in return, but there's an option if you would like to pay me back. And if you would like to pay me back, here's what you can do. There are three things. I want you to stay focused on your goals. I want you to believe in your dreams. And I want you to become the best that you can be. Those are the three things you can do to pay me back. So before we get started, I want to explain my process here. And that is a design philosophy I refer to as concept on canvas. Generally, when you are creating any kind of character design, especially with monsters, it's a very good idea to start with a sketch on paper. But in this particular situation, I'm using a philosophy I call concept on canvas, where I put the concept of the character, I put it directly onto the canvas. So I am not doing any actual conceptual sketches here. So I won't be doing any, generally you would need a few drafts before you actually do the work. And the reason why that is so important is that if you are working on a team, you need to make sure that the ideas of the game director, whoever is designing the overall experience, and making sure all the elements come together in a logical way that makes sense and it meets a unified vision. If there are many artists involved, it is important that that unified vision all comes together in a cohesive way. But as a solo developer, you can employ a concept on canvas method, which means that you come up with the concept on the canvas. Now, the reason why you would do this is because it saves a significant amount of time. If you are a solo developer, like many of you will end up being, either solo or with small teams, you will find that you will have to fill many of the game development roles yourself. Unlike studios which have multi-millions of dollars of budget, you will have to do basically all the work yourself, which means you have way less time than a large studio. And by employing concept on canvas, it allows you to save a significant amount of time. Now, this is something that generally you have to be very comfortable with your workflow. You have to have a particular amount of experience with your software, the way that you rig things up, setting those designs up into your game development environment. So concept on canvas may not be an approach that works for you early on, but as you get farther along and you gain more experience and you become more comfortable with your workflow and the different development environments, you will find that it is a valuable approach that can save a significant amount of time. I've been using concept on canvas for a number of years now as I've been running my own studio. I develop my own games, and how I employ concept on canvas is I used to spend about 2 weeks just thinking about the concept in my head. So even before I start modeling, I actually already know basically what I want because I've thought about it. I've internalized and I've created the concept in my head. So in any situation where you're creating assets for a game, especially something like this is you need to understand your use case. What do you intend to use the asset for? In this case, I'm going to create a monster, which I hope will be able to be used in a wide variety of environments and situations. So I'm going to create something that basically has a bit of a universal appeal to it in the way that it can be applied to different games. So I'm going to make a monster that doesn't necessarily have too distinct of an aesthetic. For example, I wouldn't make it look like a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom creature, because then it would only be appropriate to fit in with games that have that aesthetic. So I'm going to create a creature that can basically be used in many different use cases. Understanding your workflow allows you to streamline your development time. In this situation, that means that I know that I'm going to use an auto rigger from mixamo.com, and the auto rigger can really only do humanoid designs, humanoid body types. So that means you need 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. You are free, obviously, to create monsters of any shape and any type, but you need to know ahead of time what your process will be in order to get it to the end product. In this situation, I'm using a humanoid shape because I know that the auto rigger will save me an immense amount of time. If you create creatures that have a non-humanoid body shape, they have more limbs, they have tentacles, then in that situation you will have to create the rig yourself, which is more time consuming. That means you construct the skeletal structure, and then you manually have to assign the values onto how the various vertices, the points of the 3D model, how they attach to the bones. I'm creating a monster that is meant to be pretty small, and I would consider this sort of like a horde enemy, or an enemy that would just sort of rush you in large numbers. Obviously, you will be free to employ this creature however you like. But I'm considering that it's kind of like a small thing that, on its own maybe isn't that dangerous, but if there's a bunch of them, then possibly they can provide a bit of a logistical threat to the player, especially if there are quite a few of them. When I consider my monster designs, I always consider the context in which they are appearing. What is the lore and what is the story? For my Silver Falls games, I write specific lore for each of the monsters, and then I don't put that in the game. The lore, I write it to make sure that the monsters themselves have visual designs that, when viewed, look like they make sense. They look like there's a reason for them to exist, to have the physical traits that they have. And by not outright saying what those things are, you give the player a way to engage. What is so important with art is you have to understand it is a two-way street. You are creating something with your own intention. You have a message that you are expressing and getting across, but it's basically impossible for anyone to really fully understand what you are saying and what your message truly is. You will find that people can get pretty close, they'll kind of understand it, they'll get things right, and they may interpret aspects about your art wrong. They may see things that you did not intend, but they happen to perceive it. And that is true art. It's people are viewing something that you've created. You've created this through the filter of your life experiences. Everything that you have experienced, your memories, the decisions you have made, your regrets, your joys, your fears, all of those things contribute to your art. Every single small brushstroke, every shape that you create, the overall expression and idea of what it is you have created, those are all things that exist only because you have lived your life, and every single thing that has happened to you has influenced you up into this one point. And that is true art. And that is something that you need to leverage. So you incorporate everything that you have experienced. And when people interpret their art, they will get things wrong because they are viewing that art through the filter of their own life. And that is what makes art so beautiful, is because it is directly reliant upon our life experiences. And I think it's quite beautiful in a way. When you're sculpting, you want to make sure that you don't pinch these along the symmetry line. So I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that I don't give that a pinch along the symmetry line. I'll go ahead and smooth that out, and then I'll build it up again a little bit. I want to create a creature that looks like he could sort of, if you wanted, maybe you could make him spit out a kind of projectile in some way. So I want to make sure he has this gaping hole. Now, something that's important for artists to consider is you need to understand the effect of various visual elements. You would probably look at this and start thinking it's a little uncomfortable to look at because there are design elements that represent perhaps body organs or something that's a little uncomfortable to look at. And that is something that you will have to consider employing. This is a technique which I will create a future video to discuss the topic in detail, but it is a technique called evocation. And evocation, in short, is basically an artist's or writers or programmers or designers, it's their ability to draw upon a shared cultural memory or knowledge and express that within their art, within their creation. And so you might say, oh, this kind of looks like something, it looks kind of gross, it looks like that. That is an effective tool, and it's something that I will discuss in further detail in the future. Okay, so again, I don't want to make this creature overly detailed, as again, it's going to be quite small. Okay, that's pretty upsetting. So we might just call it, maybe I'll give them some feet here. So it's always good to scoot back and take a look at your overall shape. So this is the shape of the creature. It's quite identifiable, especially if you are in control of all the other creatures that appear, and it's important for you as a player to understand how you should engage with these creatures. I'm going to bring this in here. So once you have the shape and you are happy with the proportions, for myself, I tend to consider where the bones and the tendons would be in my creature designs. I studied anatomy for a while. I also studied anthropology, and that was quite a fascinating subject. I think I might give this guy, here's the thing, certain aspects might make things more cute, and they might make things uglier. So I might just give him, maybe we'll just give him some feet and see if we don't end up making it adorable. Let's go ahead and give that a try. Uh-oh, this is looking a little bit cute, isn't it? We'll see if we don't mess this up. Oh no, uh-oh, that's adorable. I think I might not do that. What we will do is make it a fleshy bulbous sac at the bottom to give the sense of pus gathering at the end of the appendage. So every single small pen stroke, every brush stroke, it is done with intent. You, as the artist, are trying to convey something. You are trying to express something. So make every single brush stroke count. Make every polygon count, every sculpt here, every small element that you shape, make it have some sort of meaning to you. There has to be a reason why you do that. If you do not have intent, if you do not have meaning, if you are not trying to convey something, then you may as well just use an AI image generator, because then that's basically the same amount of value. So you need to give this value. Okay, that seems to look right here. Now we have our overall shape. I'm quite happy with the shape, and now we will work on the form. You'll sometimes hear people online when discussing games talking about the silhouette of characters, What they're referring to is the shape, the overall shape, but I will work on the form of the creature. In general, there's a rule of thumb is that the more detailed something is, the more upsetting and off-putting it can be. You can take, for example, if you've ever seen a CGI movie, maybe it was meant for kids, but it's just way too detailed and it looks a little upsetting. That has the same effect when creating monsters as well. So I will start by defining where I think some bones would be and where the clavicle would be. Let's go ahead and step back, and I think I'm going to dial down the strength on this just a little bit. So I am using a Wacom drawing tablet which has pressure sensitivity, and that allows me to sculpt quite lightly, or I can push harder on the tablet and increase the strength of that. Okay, so I am just envisioning that there would possibly be some sort of clavicle bone here. Something to consider with your designs as well is where you can afford to have less detail. And that is because game hardware has a limit to the number of polygons it can render. The more polygons a model has, or a mesh as we'll refer to it, then the more demanding it is for the game to render, to process. And if it is too demanding to render, then that is when you have performance implications and your frame rate decreases. So I tend to optimize a couple times throughout a sculpt. But at the moment, if you look on the bottom left of the screen, I am at 119,000 triangles, which is a lot. That's a lot of triangles. And so I will show a step where I optimize by reducing the poly count in some areas. But what I will do is I will search for areas that it's okay for me to reduce the poly count on. So it's important to maybe give this guy some man boobs, I think, just to give him a sense of form now. See, he has the shape, but he doesn't exactly have form yet. The form are the smaller visual components that build up the visual identity of the character that you are viewing. Okay? Let's scoot back. Just try and give him... I want to make it feel like there's tendons and muscles in the man boobs that are connecting to the arm area, and a little bit saggy here. Okay, there we go. Let's have a look from this area here. Okay, now we will use the grab tool. And we will bring that out. We'll sag that down a little bit to give a sense of gravity and weight. That gravity is pulling down on the skin tissue there. That's looking okay. We'll bring that out to the side just a little bit. Now, a very useful technique when you are planning your concepts, when you're just coming up with your concepts, is to ask yourself, what if? That is an approach that I usually employ, and it's just a sort of an assistive technique to help you get started if you're not really sure what to do. And the technique of starting with what if is to give you a prompt, and that prompt should be come up with an idea and ask yourself what if, and fill in the blanks on what if. So for this concept, I thought, what if there was a small, chunky monster with a big mouth hole for spitting things out? So that is my what if in this situation. Now I want to make these man boobs stick out a little bit more, so I'm going to use the grab tool. And I'm going to bring this out like that. And I'll bring this in a little bit so that the man boobs stick out just a little bit more. Okay. And there we go. So I might work on the proportions. Maybe he's like a little too chunky. I don't want him to look a little too goofy. So what we'll do is now we will start refining details more and more. So let's go ahead and bring his hands to a pinch, and then I will start giving him some form that will make it more interesting to look at. So he's got these little arms here. And that, and we will convey a sense of muscularity. So now that I see those shoulders, I think they stick out too much. Let's go ahead and bring those in. In general, things that are round, that are quite portly, as a visual cue. This is part of visual language, and visual language is something we all share. It's a language that we all understand because we've spent decades building up that language. There are many things that we agree upon in an unspoken way without even really understanding that we've agreed upon it. Things that are chunky and round tend to feel less threatening. They're more cute, but they also tend to feel less powerful. So if you do want to convey those sort of attributes, then there is more work that you will have to do. And that requires a very strong understanding of visual language and how to balance out those elements. So I want to try to add at least some degree of threatening nature to this fun little creature, but there's a chance that he could just end up kind of adorable, and we'll get what we get. Now I could add a spine to this guy. I won't make that overly detailed because I will reduce the poly count back here in order to optimize this and just make it a bit more performant, so it has a lower poly count. Okay. So I try to give a sense of the spinal column there. Okay, I'll just go ahead and fill that in a little bit with my draw tool. And so the what if there was a small, chunky little creature and he can shoot projectiles at you. I incorporated the idea of shooting a projectile from a comment on one of my previous videos where someone asked if the next monster I created could shoot projectiles. So if you want, you can use this creature to shoot projectiles, but you will have to create the projectile on your own. That's for you to work on. I will be able to help you and point you in the right direction, but I can't do all of the work for you because I am not your dad. At least not your real one anyway. So I don't necessarily want to make this look like an arm. I kind of want to make it look like a flappy appendage, some sort of underdeveloped organ that's sort of sticking out of this guy. And let's go ahead and build a sense of muscularity here, like this. And this is the form of our character. Here I am building what appears to be a sense of muscularity, a tendon that is connected there and attached to a bone somewhere else in the body. Let's go ahead and bring that in just a little bit more. If you would like a shortcut to make characters creepy, again, this goes back to visual language, is to make things slender and to make limbs quite long. That is a visual shortcut for things that look creepy and threatening. And if you want to create your own creatures and give that a try, please try that and see how it goes. Okay, we'll build a sense of muscularity there, and then I'll go ahead and just try and build some connective muscle tissue here. But I don't want him to look like he's totally jacked. Now, I do respond to comments, and I do take those into account. And in some of my previous videos, it seems some people were asking about my OnlyFans account. So if you wait till the end of the video, I will share a trailer for my OnlyFans content. But that will be at the end of the video. So let's go ahead and just finish our work here first. Okay, this is looking pretty good. Now I'm just going to give a little bit more detail to this bottom area here, just with the grab tool. I just want a little bit more form here. And then we are going to just start optimizing. Let's see. Bring that in just a little bit. Okay. Now then, that's looking all right. Maybe that's a little too chunky on the side. Let's bring that in just a little bit. Okay, I'll go ahead and use the smooth tool here. Okay. Right, so this is a pretty good high poly count model at this point. I will go ahead and add some form to the legs so there's a sense of muscularity here. Again, I want to keep the design simple. I don't want it overly designed. This is an area where you don't necessarily need too much detail, because in general this area is difficult for the game camera to see unless you've got a very weird game, in which case, hey, you do you. It's your game. Okay, let's go ahead and give this fella some pancakes back here, as he seems to be missing a little bit of pancake form, as it were. It doesn't need to be too much, you know. Oops. Wrong sized pancake. This is what's great about using a drawing tablet with pressure sensitivity, is that with the stylus you're able to either apply light pressure or strong pressure. Okay, our friend here has some nice pancakes, and now what I'm going to do is bring this in a little bit here so it has a better sense of gravity and weight as it's thicker at the bottom, which makes it feel like gravity is pulling down the fluid in the creature. Here we go. So there's significantly more work you could do in terms of defining the form. I'll do just a little bit more and then we will get to our optimizing stage. Okay. Now I'm quite happy with the lips here. I think I'll leave that. I think that's fine enough. There was a detail that I wanted to add, and I'm going to try that and see if it works. And my idea was, so what if there was a small, pudgy creature that could shoot projectiles and had gross eyeballs coming out the side of its head? So let's go ahead and give that a try. We're going to move this forward a little bit. And I'm going to give him some eyeballs here. So what I will do is now use the draw tool, and I will hold the Alt key, and that will actually do the opposite. Instead of building up, it will actually push in. But I see I've made a mistake here on that area. So what I'll do is I'll just build this up first. Okay, I think my brush is just a little bit too small at the moment. Let's go ahead and bring that up. Give some more mass here. We'll just even this out a little bit more. Okay, so I'll hold the Alt key. Let's go ahead and push in like so. And I see if I'm negatively affecting the mouth area here, go ahead and just use the smooth key as I've negatively influenced that. You could use the freeze tool, but I'm just sort of moving quickly here. Okay, let's smoothen. Actually, I will build up upon that as well. So let's use our draw tool, and we will now zoom in just a little bit, and we will build up a super orbital ridge and a suborbital ridge. There we go. And we'll give some definition for our eyeballs. Okay. Now I've left this structure here as that gives a sense of an optic nerve connection. Okay. And eyebrows are extremely important. They're a huge part of human communication, of visual communication, and the eyebrow shape and form that you have on your creatures really has a strong impact on how it will be perceived. So I'm going with a sort of a sad boy look where it's curved up towards the front. I'll use my smooth tool here, bring the sensitivity right on down, and I'll just smooth the inside of my orbital ridge. Okay, this is looking quite nice here. Let's go ahead and smoothen that out back there just a little bit. Now we want to put an eyeball in there. So from the front, you can't see the eyes, and I think it's a little bit upsetting that you only see the eyes when it's totally on the side, and I think that's quite fun. Let's go ahead and smoothen that just a little bit. Okay, we'll go ahead and save that, and then we'll plonk our eye holes right on in there. I will add the object, put them there. Let's see, we have the grab and we'll use the scale tool. We'll scale our eyeballs right on down. Okay, I'm going to call it a day on this sculpt, and what we'll do is very quickly optimize it by reducing the poly count so that it is acceptable for games in general, especially if people want to use this as a mob, a trash mob enemy where there's plenty of them that can be used to attack the player en masse. So let's go ahead and stick that eyeball right in there, and we can color that. So I will paint a texture map for this, but you can certainly use software and you can repaint it yourself. You can customize this however you like. This will be yours to use. You may not resell it, but you can use it in your projects. Okay, and this is our friend. Great. I just want to add, I would just like to add a small detail. So you have to keep in mind scalability of your concept. How far can you take your concept? Can you keep adding things to it? I think it would be fun to have something dangling down here just as a little bit of visual interest. So I'm going to give him some small dangly bits. The more identifying traits you have on your character, in general, the more interesting it will be and the more memorable it will be. But those identifiable traits have to be used in a way that is well considered and contributes to the overall visual identity of your design. Again, I want to convey a sense of maybe it's filled with fluid, and so it's a little bit fatter towards the bottom here. Okay. Okay. I will go ahead and use the scale tool. Oh, it's on global mode right now. Let's go ahead and take off global mode. Go ahead and bring that on up. And here, we'll go ahead and shrink that down just a little bit. Okay, now overall I think it's too big. All right, it has too much presence. Overall, I'm not happy with the balance of that. So let's go ahead and shrink that down just a bit. Okay. We'll go ahead and grab that, bring that in, and we'll bring it in. There we go. Ah, yes. Okay, fantastic. I'm quite happy with this design. I'm quite happy with this. We'll go ahead and we'll save a copy of it now. So if we ever want to go back to this high resolution or high poly count version, then we certainly may. So I will go S2, which is stage 2. You can use whatever naming convention you are comfortable with. That is not any established philosophy. That is just something that I use in-house to help me keep track. So we see I have 33,000 triangles. I was counting it a little bit wrong earlier. So I will use my reduce brush here. And first I will target areas where I know the camera won't see much detail, so it's okay. Unfortunately, his pancakes will have to suffer, so I apologize for the pancake reduction. Let's see here. I know the back area does not get a lot of detail. This area may not necessarily. So you see we start losing some of our form as we use that reduce brush, but we still maintain our shape for the most part. Now, in general, it depends on the platform that you are using and the engine. So if I'm using Unity For the Switch, I would probably like to keep this around 20,000 or so. So I will go ahead and just put this around 20,000. It's ideally if you could have it in the teens, like the 13,000, 15,000, that would be acceptable as well. That would be quite good. It's more performant as well. And of course, there's many other factors that go into how performant or not your meshes are. Let's go ahead and reduce just there. Let's take a bit from the arms. These danglers, I'm going to call them little danglers. They don't need to have that much detail. Let's go ahead and reduce them just a little bit. We're at 27,000. Let's go ahead and just reduce our man boobs a little bit, a little around here, a little on the stomach. And you can see I'm losing form, but I still have my shape. And of course, if you'd like, you can also set up a level of detail system in your games so that as the model is closer to the camera, you see a higher poly count version that is more detailed, and as the model is farther away, then there will be a lower poly count version that is used, and that is for performance considerations to allow the game to have better performance. Okay, let's get close to 22,000. How about that? Let's get her a little... And there's going to be quite a bit of bending in the arms. I know that that's where the elbow will be, so I'll leave it. This area probably won't be seen too much. Let's go ahead and reduce that just a little bit. Okay, now I'm using Sculptris, which is an older software. It's from the company that makes ZBrush. Sculptris is no longer supported. It's older software, and I quite like it because it does not get in my way. It doesn't do too much to help me. It does just enough to help me as a developer, and it has an extremely low learning curve. So I like to use it to recommend to people who want to try 3D sculpting. So you can go online, search for Sculptris, and get this free. You can develop your core skills, and when you find that you need more from the software, you can move on to other software like ZBrush. Your skills from using Sculptris will translate into ZBrush. Okay, we're at 23,000. Let's just go ahead and take a little bit more. Let's get close to 22, why don't we? And again, you can also work on this model more if you need it to have lower poly count. You can do that as well using your 3D software. You can use a global automated function to just reduce the poly count entirely. Anyway, I'm going to call it. That is 22,700 and odd pixels. Let's go ahead and save that, and what I will do is now we will go ahead and now click on Paint. This is a library that I have internally for my workflow. You'll have to set up your own. Okay? Now I'll just go ahead and put a base coat on this guy. Base coat. Oh, actually I'll apply the base coat first, and then I will turn off symmetry. And turning off symmetry will allow us to have a more interesting looking character. When you have symmetry turned on, it means the left side looks exactly the same as the right side, and it tends to give it an uncanny, inorganic feeling, and not in a good way. It looks like it looks like it's a not good video game asset if you have symmetry on when you're painting. As you can see here, the details from the left and right are exactly the same. So I just want to get the base coat first before turning off the symmetry, and then we can start painting more details on our little friend. And of course, you are free, once you have this model, you are free to paint it however you like. You can make modifications to the model itself, and again, it's free to use for everyone, but you may not resell it. Let's go ahead and give him a little bit of detail now. I will go ahead and just make the inside of his mouth fleshy. Let's give him some fleshy tones in this here. Oh. We will disable symmetry. Okay. You can also define brushes as well. I'm just going to use the default round brush, but when you use these programs, you absolutely can define all your own brushes. Now, I'm not sweeping, I'm not brushing, I am splatting, I'm just tapping, because if you sort of drag that, you get this sort of look to it. So I'm just going to tap. You can also enable directional. People won't really be able to see the inside of your mouth, but that's not the point. Let's go ahead and just make sure that we've covered all surfaces. If I happen to miss a spot even a little bit, again, it doesn't super matter. Now, what is quite useful to do is if you need to convey a sense of bottomlessness, especially when it comes to crevices, holes, mouths, I'll just use a little bit of black and I'll zoom on in there and just paint the bottom of that. And that way, it'll also help me when I'm creating specularity maps, is to convey that should be no longer reflecting light. And so that will help with that aspect. Okay, we're looking pretty good here. Let's go ahead and just give this boy some more details. Let's give him a little bit of, let's see, maybe a little bit of this. And so these are, I would say these are some chapped lips. I would say that's the situation here. It's fun to imagine stories for your characters as you are putting your concept on the canvas here. These are chapped. Wow, I'm just realizing how kissable these lips are. These, yeah, that's kissable. This may be some of the most kissable lips I've ever seen. Now, when it comes to appendages and you want to make it seem like blood flow has increased through that appendage, you would generally want to make it look red, as that would give that sense of blood flowing. So if I push a little harder on my brush, you can see that I am getting a bit more of the effect from that texture. So I'm going to start pushing a little harder now. And this is why I really enjoy using a drawing tablet for this step, is because, again, pressure sensitivity allows you to have fine control. Here we go. Okay. I also want to make the eyes possibly look like they're a little bit swollen, so I'll give it some red around the eyes and I'll paint that. I'll paint the eyeball black as well. So let's give it some red around the eye. I want to make sure that inner area is properly painted as well. Make sure the inside of the eye is in there. I'll come back and paint the eyeball black in just a moment. Okay, let's go ahead, make sure we get that all covered. Very good. Okay, now we want to convey a sense of his form here. I want to sort of convey that tendon or muscularity has some blood flow going through it. So I'll go ahead and use that just there. Now I will have to start using different new material packs, because these are the material packs that I use for my Silver Falls games to give my creatures quite a specific look, a universal visual language. And I will be creating these models free regularly, but that means that I can't just keep using my material asset library. So I will create one. So this may be the last monster that we see using these materials, because these materials, again, I made them specifically for Silver Falls. So this monster may end up looking a little bit, a little bit similar to a Silver Falls monster because of the library that I've used here for the materials. So now I want to start masking some of the symmetry that we see along the model. I want to give a sense of fleshiness. Maybe the skin is not quite in great shape. So let's just go ahead and start splotching some flesh onto this guy here. Okay, this is looking pretty good. We're getting rid of some of that symmetry now, so it looks more organic. Okay, This is a step that you can spend a very long time on, and I'm really just going to speed through it so we can see what it's like to get through to the end product here. So I'll just make a few more additions to the detail here. And if you happen to use this character in your projects, in your games, please feel free to share that with me. I would like to see what you are working on. It's always good to share what you're working on. And I always enjoy hearing from other game developers as well. So, okay. I think we are there. So actually what I would like to do now is I want to make sure that when this is seen at an angle, I want the arms to be extremely identifiable and noticeable. So what I will do is I will make the ends of the arms brighter and make sure that they stand out in some way. So let's go ahead and just give a sense that there is blood pooling along the bottom of his bottom appendages here. That gives a sense of blood pooling. It's nice and red. What we'll do is we'll put a little bit more red there down at the bottom as well. We'll make it look swollen. How about that? Very nice. This is looking quite nice now. So let's just go ahead and give a little bit more detail here and here and there. And then we'll go back to our light skin color here and just dab that on the very tips of our hands here to make sure that they can stand out from the body. And this, to me, my intent here is to express that there is no blood flow at the very ends of his hands or at the ends of his arms. And I'm conveying that is my intent. I'm conveying my intent by having the areas that have blood in them are a bit rounder and they're more red, and the areas that don't have blood flow are narrow and white. And this is important, again, to express your intent. As an artist, every single brushstroke matters. You are saying something, you are expressing something. You as an artist are expressing your intent and your message. That is something that AI cannot do because that is procedural generation. You don't actually have control over the intent. And this is something that you will have to make sure you understand on a deeper level, because you will hear from many people who will express their perspective that generative AI is art. And unfortunately, if we don't explain what true art is, then that misconception will take hold and people will lose an understanding of what actual art is. It is expression and intent filtered through the entirety of your life's experiences. You will find that people, maybe you can tell what kind of life experiences they have if their work is something that doesn't feel mature, their work doesn't feel like they have an understanding of the world. Generally, you'll find those are people who have not had well-rounded life experiences, and you can generally connect with people on a deeper level. You can, on an intrinsic level, understand who has had deeper life experiences. Okay, I think... Oh, look at our wonderful boy. Let's go ahead and make sure his eyeballs now get a little bit to stand out here. Let's go ahead and save that. We'll go ahead and just paint this black. Now it is going to bleed a little bit on the edges. I'll just go ahead and fix that after I paint the eyeballs. I will fix that. That's enough. That's good. Here we go. I believe we use this one. Let's go ahead and just clean up that area now. Again, I'll save that. And I'll see if I can just clean that up a little bit. Again, it doesn't super matter. Again, this isn't, this isn't a paid asset or anything. Uh-oh. If it was an asset that was paid, you want to make sure it's absolutely, the very best, that you're paying for. But this is more as an educational tool. and an assistive resource. So I won't be doing any further work on this. So what you see on the stream is what you will see in the free download. Oh, we'll have to fix that, won't we? We'll just go ahead and fix that very quickly. And there we are. Let's go ahead and fix that as well. Go ahead and save. Once we finish painting these eyeballs, we will go ahead and put that into the auto rigger, and we will prepare some animations for it. I've gone off a little bit. I'll have to fix that area down there a little bit, won't I? So again, this is going to be a little rough in this area because you generally need to spend more time. What actually I would do is I would load this into a different modeling program, and I would actually paint the eyeballs separately. I would actually separate them into different objects, and then I would assign different materials that way. So this is a bit messy because I'm not going to use it for a commercial product myself, and if I were, then I would to load this into separate software, and I would make these separate objects so I can work on them in a much more focused manner. But in the situation, again, this is an educational product, and it's to help you with your game and to give you something to use. So I'll go ahead and call it there. We could spend all day working on this, but that is our friend. Have a look at that. Okay, let's go ahead and put this into an auto rigger and have it rigged up and ready for you to use for your game. I will export. I'll save the texture map. Okay. And I will export. Okay, let's go ahead and pause it. Okay, here we are at Mixamo.com. Let's go ahead and upload our new character. And I will drag and drop the file into the web browser here, which is monster2.obj. Now, this auto rigger will allow us to assign where we basically want to put our main joints. And if our character makes sense to the system, it will automatically put the bones in, and it will allow that character to be rigged with humanoid animations. Let's go ahead and see if the auto rigger can handle our strange design. When you have odd designs like this, the auto rigger can struggle a little bit. So let's go ahead and try it. I might have to say the chin. Oh, this might be difficult. Okay. Our wrists. Our elbows. Our knees. And our groin. Now, we can specify no fingers, and with any luck, this will rig, and we'll be able to save that and create some animations for it using the library from Mixamo.com. Congratulations, it's a boy. It looks like our rig has worked well enough. Now, I'm seeing areas where perhaps the blending weights need to be smoothed a bit on the corners here. But if you would like to improve that yourself, you certainly may work on that further. Again, I can't do all the work for you, as I'm just here to lend you a hand in terms of getting started. So this is quite fine enough, especially if it's going to be a smaller character. This will be perfectly usable, and it will be able to help you getting started when you are working on your games. So I'll go ahead and just go and pick a small starting animation here. So let's say idle, and I'll show you how you can apply. First, we'll download our character. I'm going to select FBX for Unity, and I will download that. And let's try some idle animations here. Yes, this seems to work just fine. Look at our beautiful boy. Let's have a look at some other idle animations. Let's try something like this. There, that seems pretty good. You can use these sliders to adjust the arm space a little bit. I'll go ahead and crank that up, and you can see that it fans the arms out a little bit. I will go ahead and save this animation. Now, in general, when you do this, you want to say without skin, and again, FBX for Unity, and that will allow you to download as many animations as you want, and you can apply them with the in-game logic. I hope this has been helpful to you, and I hope you've enjoyed the lesson today, and I hope these ideas and concepts have made sense to you. If there's anything that you disagree with me on, I'd be interested to hear your perspective in the comment section below. I will listen to you. I won't just tune you out and ignore you or block you. If you disagree, it's important that people are able to discuss their different perspectives, and at least if you don't agree on a subject, you can at least understand where the other person is coming from and respect their perspective, even if you disagree entirely. Thank you very much for watching, and now I will share my trailer for the OnlyFans page, which people have been asking for. Please enjoy. All right, so this is one of the fans that I use, and it's pretty good. It's an entry-level, low tier one, but it works really well, and it has the volume changers up top, and of course it has the swivel adjuster just there. Pretty standard, but that's a pretty good fan. Good value for money. All right, now this is an older fan, circa 1970, 75. It's a bit older. It's not really functioning properly right now, so it has been disassembled, but it did have a high output. The shape of the blades here really contributed to that. It has the adjusters there, and it required a bit of tension on the wing nut on the other side. Okay, now this is one of those, technically it's a fan. It's more of a little space heater, but you can just turn that on, and it's a fan. It does not have a swivel like the other fans, and you can see you've only really got two volumes here. That's 50%, 100%, but that is technically a fan.